Good to see you in a new video on Betrayal Wife Tales. Today I'm going to tell you an interesting story of our subscriber.
It's funny how life can crumble, not in a single instant, but slowly, like a car wreck unfolding in front of you, one you can't avoid no matter how hard you hit the brakes. That's exactly how my life felt the moment I found out my wife was cheating on me. My name is David, and until a few months ago, I was married to my everything, Jessica. We had been together for 12 years, married for 8. We met back in college, a classic story of two young people falling fast and deep. It felt like fate, though I never bought into that idea before her. I used to be the guy who rolled his eyes at the concept of destiny or the one. All that seemed like it belonged in cheesy romance novels or Hollywood scripts. But Jessica changed that. She had a way of making me believe in things I never thought possible. She was this bright, vibrant force, full of laughter, warmth, and ambition. Her smile, man, it could light up a whole room and make the world feel like it was going to be all right. And for a long time, it really was. Our life together seemed like something out of a dream. We bought a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood, got a dog, a scruffy little terrier named Max, and spent long weekends talking about our future. Kids were definitely part of the plan, or so I thought. I had a solid job as a software engineer, and Jessica worked as a high-powered marketing executive. We were that couple. The ones everyone saw at parties and said, "Man, they've got it all." Friends would constantly comment on how perfect we were for each other, how lucky we were. It felt like nothing could break us. But life has a funny way of pulling the rug out from under you, doesn't it? You think you're untouchable, like you're in some protective bubble? Then out of nowhere, reality comes crashing down like a storm you didn't see on the radar. It started with tiny cracks, the kind of things you hear about but never think will happen to you. Looking back, I should have seen the writing on the wall. Jessica started working late more often. At first, I didn't give it much thought. Her firm had just landed a huge account, and she was always the type to throw herself into her work. She'd come home late, tired but still smiling, and we'd settle on the couch to watch whatever show we were hooked on at the time. I trusted her. Completely. Maybe too much. Then about 8 months ago, things began to shift. They say your gut knows before your mind does, and I can tell you that's true. I felt it, this gnawing sense that something was off. Jessica was glued to her phone more than usual, but it wasn't the casual scrolling kind. It was something more intense, like she was waiting for someone to text back. At first, I tried to dismiss it. I didn't want to be that jealous, paranoid husband, the kind who imagines things that aren't there. But the unease was growing, whispering in the back of my mind, telling me I wasn't imagining it. Our conversations were different too, surface level, the kind of chit-chat you'd have with a stranger rather than your partner. The laughter we once shared, it was becoming scarce, hollow, like the echoes of something that used to be real. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to ask her. I had to know if I was losing my mind or if there was something more sinister at play. I still remember that evening like it was yesterday because I'd spent the entire day at work running through what I was going to say in my head. Rehearsing it, trying to find the right words that wouldn't make me seem paranoid. When I walked through the door, Jessica was sitting on the couch, her phone in hand, barely noticing me. The sight of it made my stomach churn. I sat down next to her, trying to act casual. But my heart was racing like I'd just run a marathon. "Jess," I said, trying to sound calm, though my voice wavered a little. "You've been working a lot lately. Is everything okay? You've been a bit distant?" She didn't look up from her phone. "Just work stress," she muttered, her eyes still glued to the screen. "It's nothing." But it didn't feel like nothing. The way she said it, so dismissive, felt like a door slammed in my face. I wanted to press, to dig deeper, but something stopped me. I didn't want to come across as insecure or worse, like I didn't trust her. So I swallowed my doubts and let it go. For now. Weeks went by, and the cracks in our relationship only deepened. Jessica, who had once been a homebody, suddenly turned into a social butterfly. She started going out with her colleagues more and more, claiming she needed to unwind after long, stressful days. Normally, Jessica wasn't much for the nightlife. She'd usually prefer a quiet evening at home, but now it seemed like every other night she had some after-work event or happy hour to attend. She'd come home late, sometimes with a faint scent of alcohol on her breath, and other times I could smell a different perfume, a floral scent that definitely wasn't hers. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was being irrational, paranoid even. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. One Friday night, she mentioned yet another work event. I offered to drive her, hoping that maybe being part of her world that evening would ease the growing distance between us. But she dismissed the idea almost instantly, with a tone that made me feel like I was more of a nuisance than a partner. "It's just for employees, David," she said, her voice laced with impatience. "You'd be bored." I watched her as she got ready, slipping into a dress I hadn't seen in months. She looked breathtaking, no doubt about it, but there was a coldness in her eyes that cut through me. It was like she was there physically, but her mind, her heart, was somewhere else. She left the house around 8 p.m., leaving me alone in the living room with the TV on. But my attention was far from the screen. I tried to distract myself, flipping through channels, staring at my phone, even considering calling up a few friends to see if anyone wanted to grab a beer. But I couldn't focus. My thoughts kept spiraling back to Jessica. My mind raced with 1,000 different scenarios, each one worse than the last. Was she really just with her co-workers? Or was there someone else? Someone who had already taken my place in her heart? I shook off the thoughts, feeling a lump of dread forming in my stomach. It was close to midnight when I heard her pull into the driveway. Jessica walked in with an energy that didn't quite match someone who was supposed to be drained from work. Her smile was too bright, her laugh too easy. And there was something else, a smudge of lipstick out of place and her hair messier than when she had left. The small, nagging voice in my head grew louder. "How was it?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. But I couldn't mask the tension in my voice. "Fun," she said, flashing that same smile that didn't reach her eyes. She didn't linger long. She disappeared into the bathroom almost immediately. I sat there on the couch, staring at the closed door, my heart pounding. Something was definitely off, but I wasn't ready to face it yet. I wasn't ready to confront the possibility that my worst fears might be true. Hours passed before I could bring myself to move. Jessica had fallen asleep in the bedroom, her phone resting on the nightstand, charging. The thought of snooping, something I never imagined I would do, crossed my mind. She had always been open with her phone, never hiding her passcode. And up until that moment, I had never once felt the need to invade her privacy. But that night was different. That night, I had to know. With my hands trembling, I picked up her phone and opened it. I scrolled through her messages, hoping, praying that I wouldn't find anything. Maybe it was all in my head. Maybe I was imagining things. But as I scrolled through her texts, my heart sank. There, nestled among the usual work-related messages, was a long thread with a guy named Mark. Hundreds of messages. At first, they seemed innocent. Banter, jokes, things colleagues might say to each other. But the further I scrolled, the darker it got. The messages became flirtatious, then explicit. There were graphic details, things I couldn't unread, and the pictures. My breath caught in my throat. Selfies, intimate photos, moments they had shared that should have been ours alone. I sat there, my world crumbling around me, unable to move. It was as if everything I knew, everything I believed in, had been ripped away in an instant. My mind raced. The woman I had trusted with my heart, my life, had betrayed me. She had lied. And for how long? I couldn't fathom it. The next morning, I confronted her. I could hardly look at her without feeling a surge of rage and heartbreak. When I showed her the messages, she didn't deny it. She couldn't. The evidence was undeniable. Jessica broke down in tears, pleading with me, saying it had been a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, that she still loved me. But her words felt like daggers, hollow and empty. The damage had been done. The trust we had built over years was gone, shattered like a vase knocked off a shelf in slow motion, crashing into a million pieces. I wanted to scream, to break something, to release all the anger, betrayal, and grief that was coursing through me. But instead, I just sat there, number. The weight of it all was too much. I couldn't cry, couldn't shout. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air but never able to breathe. In the days that followed, I tried to make sense of everything, but nothing added up. I went over every detail of our relationship, every sign I might have missed. Had this been my fault? Could I have done something differently? I replayed conversations, gestures, looks, but no matter how much I searched for answers, one truth remained. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a stranger who had lied to me, betrayed me, and no matter what I did, there was no going back to the life we once had. We're not together anymore. After everything came crashing down, I packed my bags, walked out of the door, and left the life Jessica and I had spent years building together. Leaving wasn't easy. Every inch of that house held memories, some filled with joy and others stained by the weight of what I'd uncovered. But staying? Staying would have broken me even more. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Not after knowing what she had done. It's been about 6 months since I left, and the pieces of my life still feel scattered. Some days are bearable, good even. I've thrown myself into work, into anything that keeps me moving forward. Other days, though, are harder. The weight of everything presses down like a lead blanket I can't shake off. I've started therapy, trying to sort through the mess of emotions, anger, grief, confusion. Mostly, I'm trying to figure out how to heal, how to keep going after a betrayal that cut so deep. Trust, though. That's the hardest part. It feels like a scar I'll carry for the rest of my life. It doesn't matter how much time passes. The pain is always there in the background, a constant reminder of what was lost, what was shattered. Trust isn't something I can just rebuild. Not easily. Not after what happened. I've questioned everything since then. Every relationship, every interaction. I can't help it. I don't know if I'll ever be able to let my guard down again. Jessica still texts me sometimes. Her messages are filled with apologies, regrets, saying she wishes we could just go back to how things were, but we can't. That life is gone. It's buried under the weight of lies and the affair she tried to hide from me. And honestly, I wouldn't want to go back. Not to that version of us, not after knowing what I know now. It's like trying to rebuild a house on a foundation that's crumbled. It doesn't work. I don't have everything figured out yet. There's still a lot of uncertainty about where I'm headed, who I'm going to be after all of this. I'm still sifting through the wreckage of what used to be my life, trying to piece together a future from the fragments that remain. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. I'll never make the mistake of trusting someone so blindly again. That kind of naivety, it's a luxury I can't afford anymore.